And we are at the Indiana State Library today. I am Alberta Barker and I am chair for the commission. And I am calling the meeting to order. And I will turn it over to Stephanie for our roll call.
Thank you, Alberta. We'll start with DSC Arrington Slocum.
Present, Region 6.
Present, Region 4.
Chuck
Commissioner.
Walter.
Present, Region 5.
Brittany Kelly.
Present, Region 12.
Dave Heist.
Present.
Greg Hall.
Present, Region 7.
Lori McRobbie.
Present. Me.
Renee Thomas.
Present.
And then on the Zoom, we have Jake Oakman,
Present.
Kelsey Paper,
Present, Region 7.
and Penny Valentine.
Here, Region 7.
Yeah, you got it.
She's calling.
And then IAC staff, we're going to line Taya.
Between National Communications Manager.
Mary Hashimoto, Communications Manager.
Connie Brown, Marketing Communications Director.
Kayla Myers, Region 2, partner with the Community Foundation of St. Joseph.
Eric Ashby, Grants and Research Manager.
Good morning, Andrew Zhang, Deputy Director of Operations.
Paige Sharp, Deputy Director of Programs.
Jordan Adams, Artist Services Program Manager.
Suzette Hartsfield Jones, Contracting and Financial Operations Coordinator.
Maya.
Maya Michelson, Executive Director.
Sure, I never just got
I'm Angela. I'm the Programs Intern.
it. And then Stephanie.
Stephanie Haynes, Arts Education and Accessibility Program Manager.
Thank you.
And then we have guests.
Hi, Alex Hellman, Region 12 from the Madison Area Arts Alliance.
Ryan Sheldon, Region 7, Pickle Playgrounds.
Stephanie, would you like to introduce our special guest?
I'd be so excited to, and we're ready for her recitation. Okay, because. And performance. I'm so pleased today to welcome Sarika Dacharna Munjaluri. She is a junior at Columbus North High School, and in March, she participated in our Poetry Out Loud program, which has been going on for 15 years. It's a program of the National Awards and every state agency, and including all 50 states plus the territories of the United States, participate in Poetry Out Loud. And every year for 15 years, we've done this. And this year, Sripata won as our Indiana state champion. We always have a state champion that we send on to Washington, D.C. to the Poetry Out Loud National, where all 56 participants come from everywhere to perform. And Poetry Out Loud is a recitation competition. There's an anthology of poetry written by professional poets. The students find poems that connect with who they are and poems that speak to them. They memorize them and they recite them back on stage. So there's stage presence and there's, vocal elements and articulation and as well as conveying emotion and the tone of the poem. Those are the criteria we look for in a good recitation. And so Sripata went on to nationals and became a national champion. Indiana has never had a national champion before. We're very excited to have her first, and we're excited for her to be Sripata. We've invited her here today to recite one of her award-winning poems for you all. And this one is called Colossus, but I'll let you. Sure.
The New Colossus by Emma Lazarus. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame with conquering limbs astride from land to land. Here, at our sea-washed sunset gates, shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning. And her name, Mother of Exiles. From her beacon hand flows worldwide welcome. Her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities bring. Keep, ancient lands, your storied pomp, cries she with silent lips. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest tossed, to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door.
As you can see, obviously, why now she's the winner. That was fantastic. It's hard to believe she didn't write that poem. It feels like it's from her. But no, that's by Emma Lasser. Yeah. So, thank you for being here today. Thank you for having me. A fantastic representative of Indiana and our agency and everything.
Teresa, do you want to say a little bit about yourself? And you're from Columbus,
Yes.
right? Yes, and you're.
Yes, so
Hard to believe.
So I guess in the upcoming school year, I'm going to be a senior at Columbus North High School. I'm involved in a couple of different public speaking related activities, so I do debate and speech as well. So it's one of my passions. And as I'm applying into college, I think I want to pursue a biomedical career, but at the same time, I still want to be involved in arts and the humanities as well. So this was a great opportunity for me to explore that. So I really am grateful for Indiana Arts Commission and everything you guys do.
Lucia Walker, or that who was our state champion a few years ago, also said she wanted a biomedical degree, and then when she got to college, she switched to arts administration. Keep that in mind. Great to have you. Wait for some PR, and she's gonna go to the state house and do some stuff. So thanks. One more thing I'll mention about the Poet Laureate program, the adult Poet Laureate program. For the first time in 4 years, because COVID really impacted the Poet Laureate program. This summer, we'll be reopening the application for the state Poet Laureate program. I wanted to let you guys all know because next time we see you in September, it'll be well on its way, but applications will open this summer, probably late July. And I want you guys to spread the word. I wanted to mention. Big Poet Laureate coming up.
That was amazing, yes. Absolutely amazing. So the Indiana Arts Commission is represented well. So thank you, Scrivener. I certainly appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
So next thing on the agenda is the approval of the agenda and the March 10, 2023 meeting minutes. So hopefully everyone has had an opportunity to review these. Are there any changes to either, well, let's say, are there any changes to the agenda? Do we need to pull anything from the, oh, that's the next one, consent agenda, okay. How about to the minutes? Are there any corrections to the minutes? Okay, hearing none, I will take a motion to approve the agenda and the minutes from the March quarterly business meeting.
Second.
Second.
Stephanie, if you could do roll call.
Thank you. Easy,
Aye.
Alberta,
Aye.
Chad,
Aye.
Rena. Hi. Ruth Ann,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
Renee. Hi. Jake,
Aye.
Ann,
Aye.
Kelsey. Hi. Motion carries.
Thank you, Stephanie. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. And we have the following items that are submitted for the commission approval. The fiscal year 23 year-to-date financials, the cultural trust draw, the designation of contract signing authority, seating of creative convergence project approval to the staff, and the reports for review, Indiana General Assembly 2023 session update, the Arts Trust report, the communications report and Governor's Arts Awards update, the Lifelong Arts New Artist Cohort, the Lifelong Arts Returning Artist Project funding proposals. Would anyone like to remove any items from the consent agenda for further discussion? If not, I will take a motion to approve the consent agenda items.
So moved.
Second.
Stephanie?
Thank you. Easy,
Aye.
Alberta,
Aye.
Chad,
Aye.
Rena.
Aye.
Ruth Ann,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Lori. Renee.
Aye.
Kelsey,
Aye.
Jake,
Aye.
Ann.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Moving on to the committee reports, we have committee on the future. And Andre, you are up to talk about fiscal year 24 agency budget.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So at the previous quarterly business meeting, we had the opportunity to share the first look of the agency's fiscal year 24 budget. Today, we present its final variation for approval, including the revenue figures provided by both the Indiana General Assembly and the National Endowment for the Arts. So the proposed agency budget for fiscal year 24 includes the following. On revenue, we have a fiscal appropriation by the Indiana General Assembly that aligns with Governor Holcomb's proposed recommended budget for ISC as part of the 2024-2025 biennial budget, which includes an increased allocation for both personnel and programs and operation expenses. You can see the information. There we go. Perfect. Thank you. So we can see that we have 40% overall state appropriation in our budget, 23% in our point one, which is our personnel, would be 46% of operations and programs. Moving up, we have also the federal appropriation recommended by the National Endowment of the Arts, which was approved this week. We have a 13% appropriation increase for fiscal year 23. However, we do not anticipate this increase to sustain in fiscal year 25, so the agency will be budgeting appropriately. As I said, 13% overall, 13% for our state plan, which is what we use for general programs, same amount for poetry out loud, 17% increase for underserved communities, 0.7 reduction for arts education, and the same amount for Pulsar partnerships. I do want to say that last week, the state budget agency announced that all state agencies will be holding a 2% management holdback. So everything that you will see in our budget accounts for that. Additionally, in collaboration with the Indiana Department of Education and the Indiana Families and Social Services Administration Division of Aging, we will be getting additional revenue for our agencies to support the various programs such as arts integration in classrooms and lifelong art creative aging, which we hear more from Stephanie Haynes. So this screen shows again an overview for fiscal year 24, inclusive of that 2% reserve bed. Moving up now to the expenses and projected expenditures. Personnel, this increase accommodate the enactment of the comprehensive compensation strategy approved by the Indiana State Personnel Department. So we can see that we have a 21% of that. Our core programs in response to the recommended changes to the Arts Organization Support Equity Study, Programs will reflect a restructure in the allocation, ensuring a more equitable distribution for these programs across Indiana. Paige will talk a little bit more about this later, but we see a 12% increase in AOS grants, 17% APS grants. Big priority for this upcoming fiscal year is to include targeted funding opportunities to improve Hoosiers' quality of life through arts and creativity. These strategic initiatives include investment for creative communities in collaboration with Ball State University to expand access to the arts in our rural counties, support for capacity building assistance, providing resources to local artists and cultural organizations to better serve their communities, artist service initiatives to support creative entrepreneurship while assessing the needs and opportunities for Hoosier artists, and the expansion of programs across Indiana, along with innovative programs such as Lifelong Art Indiana and the creative teaching to reach wider audiences across all of our regions. Additionally, in our budget line this year is the Governor Arts Award. We have allocated budget for the commission of a local artist to create the commissions of this year's awards and video production services to highlight and celebrate the contributions of this year's awardees to the cultural fabric of our state. On the screen is an overview of the proposed expenditures for fiscal year 24 with the highlighted lines in yellow denoting increased investment in the areas of programs, grants, and services. Madam Chair, the staff hereby submits the proposed fiscal year 2024 budget for approval, and we're happy to address any questions and concerns that commissioners might have.
Thank you, Andre. Are there any questions, issues, or concerns with regard to the budget?
One quick question. You talked about not sustaining the 30%. So does that mean we're going to go down? We're going to stabilize?
So when we're talking about not sustaining is that right now we're getting that increase from the NEA. We don't know what that's going to be for 2025, given the conditions of the budget at the federal level. So we have that budget now allocated for fiscal year 24. We remember that the state agency budget, it's a biannual budget. So we also have to keep in mind how much we're going to allocate from our 25 allocation from the General Assembly. So we have to be very mindful about how we're spreading the programs and how we relate spaces for programs that we have in 2024 to programs that we have in 2025.
Right. So we want to make sure that we don't allow our federal dollars to make promises in 2024. So just being careful about where we allocate those funds so that we've got flexibility should that work go down. I don't think it's going to be a big difference, but they've been pretty specific to put us on notice that it could very well, this fund that we got could very well be just a one-time situation.
So, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Anything online? If not, thank you, Andre, that I'm just happy to see the increases for the arts agencies. I mean, that's absolutely fabulous. It's coming at a much needed time. So wonderful that the state could increase our budget and also the NEA. So please for me. I will take a motion to approve the budget then as submitted. So second. Stephanie, I'll ask for roll call.
Thank you. Azizi,
Aye.
Alberta,
Aye.
Chad,
Aye.
Raina. Aye. Ruth Ann,
Aye.
Dave,
Fine.
Ray,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
Renee,
Aye.
Kelsey,
Aye.
Jake,
Aye.
and
Aye.
motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have the strategic framework update. Eric? I'll just say a word and sort of queue up Eric. So strategic framework, just as a reminder, is our strategic plan 2024 to 2028. Our federal agency requires us to have one. We also have it because it's good practice. Chad and Raina are chairing that, co-chairing that for us. We met in March. Had such a great meeting, such a great in-person meeting that they asked for another in-person meeting in August. So we're going to have another in-person meeting in August, which is great. Part of what they saw and we talked about was what you're going to see here from Eric, which is some data that we collected with our partner, the National Assembly of State Arts Agencies, to help us understand kind of some how we're supporting the state and how various constituencies view our work. And I wanted an opportunity to share that with you so that you get a little bit of sense of sort of what we're seeing and sort of how that's helping work. So I'm going to pass it over to Eric to talk a little bit about some of the findings from the research and we did this back last fall.
Thanks, Maya. Morning, everyone. So we're gonna go through what the survey was, why we did it, some of the key findings, how it's informing what we're thinking about, and then where we're going from here. So just as a quick recap of what NASA is, that's the National Assembly for State Parks Agencies. They're the sort of professional organization for regional and state parks agencies. They house a lot of the data that all the state parks agencies collect, and so they're in a really unique position to see what's happening nationally and come alongside and helping to develop this survey so that we're capturing the information we need to know. And so we really looked across the state and distributed it across the state, looking at those 5 key areas: the constituent engagement, relevance, support for the arts, contributions to livability and well-being, and then the value of ISC programs and services. And we looked at these 5 areas across 3 key groups, being artists, organizations, and community members. So what we wanted to do with this is provide a public forum for people to provide some feedback that could come alongside the strategic framework process. So we had that input, and looking at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, both across the different groups, those artists, community members, organizations, as well as geographically, so urban and rural, pulling out Monroe County. So trying to look across those different subsections to see what's going on.
I think you mean Marion.
Marion,
not
sorry, I'm from Bloomington.
So a little Monroe County bias.
Yeah. When we're looking at all this, we're gonna then try to figure out how might we respond to this information. So some of the key findings that we saw was on the overall response rate for the survey was pretty low. And certainly on the artist side, which Jordan will talk a little bit more about later, we had a pretty homogeneous group of artists in particular that responded to the survey. So we're looking to investigate that a little bit more. And on the relevance and value of the arts, overwhelmingly, everyone saw the arts as very valuable, and particularly the artists and arts organizations, which isn't a surprise. But we certainly want to build on that desire and value of the arts. For the support for the arts, one of the things that we saw was a lack of connection between artists and creative. This is both between artists and between community members and artists. A lot of people didn't know of an artist in their community, and a lot of artists didn't know of a fellow artist in their community. And so Jordan's also going to talk more about that when we get to some other artist needs assessment information later. The other thing that was pretty interesting in support for the arts was there's a bit of a difference in what urban artists versus rural artists saw as challenges. A lot of people wanted to grow professionally, but there were some things like affording art supplies and healthcare that were rated more highly among rural artists and were less of a challenge for more urban artists. And so trying to dig into where those differences lie and how we can better support people with different circumstances is definitely something that we're pulling out of this. In terms of contributions to community livability and well-being, there was a lot of people that rated tourism attracting visitors very highly as how the arts contribute to community livability and well-being. But then when asked about what terms do you associate with arts and culture, we got things like community and growth, and tourism and attracting visitors started to fall lower and lower on the list. So there seemed to be some sort of maybe disconnect between the perception of what the arts do in the community and then the lived experience in the community. And so we want to really look deeper into that and see what's happening there and see where we can insert ourselves to build that. And the other thing that came out of this was in terms of looking at partnerships, who people are partnering with. Correctional facilities were really low on the list across the board. Not many folks are partnering with correctional facilities. For the value of Arts Commission programs and services, overwhelmingly, all groups said, yes, grants, money, yay, give that to us. So that was a big winner. No surprise there. But there was also a desire for fact sheets. People wanted more data and information that they could use in an advocacy capacity. And a lot of people were unaware of the RAPs, which in turn created an undecidedness about their value. And so we definitely want to look at that as well. So looking ahead, what does all this mean for us? What are we thinking about in response to some of these things? Jordan's going to talk about this later, but in terms of the connection between artists and artist needs assessment, we'll be launching later on, and you'll hear more about that to hopefully build some more relationships and connection between artists and community members and among artists themselves. Andre had a great trip up to Gary along with books, doing some on the ground work with folks up there, and which resulted in a really wonderful turnout for applicants into the lifelong program. And so we're definitely looking to do more of that partnership building and sort of relationship building across the state to help build that constituent engagement. So hopefully the next time there's a survey, that response rate is way up and we're getting people giving us more feedback. In terms of the relevance and value of the arts, we definitely want to build on the desire to engage with arts and creativity across the constituent groups and meet people where they are. So we have the Creative Convergence Program, which is working with municipalities on kind of connecting the arts and other things that are happening, other needs that they see in their community. So we want to keep looking at where those intersections happen while also being aware that there's a lot of interesting migration patterns happening right now in terms of people moving away from the coasts. We've got a lot of empty office spaces and downtown spaces. Downtowns are not places people work as much, but come to play more often because they can work remotely. So keeping in mind some of these other shifts in communities that are happening in both urban and rural places and figuring out where the arts may be relevant as those shifts occur. Again, for the support for the arts, that artist needs assessment is going to be a key piece in connecting artists. And additionally, ongoing efforts with the on-ramp program has been great in connecting artists with each other and with their community and helping to build that support network there. So we're going to continue to dive into that. For contributions to community livability and well-being, we definitely want to look at the role of arts and culture, particularly in more rural settings, to sort of figure out where that discrepancy I mentioned earlier is coming up and figure out what we can do there, as well as moving toward more partnerships with correctional facilities. Andre's been working with the Department of Corrections, so we're hopefully going to be moving in a direction to engage with more correctional facilities and where arts may intersect in that capacity. And then lastly, the value of the IAC programs and services, we want to look at how we can deepen the IAC granting that we're doing. So we're looking at the APS redevelopment, which you'll hear a little bit more about later, and the AOS changes that were just made, which we'll also hear more about. So we're really looking at how can we make this granting more impactful and responsive to what we're hearing from people. And certainly leaning into the data that Andre has been building a phenomenal dashboard, and we want to equip organizations and community members with the information that they need to better run their organizations and connect with opportunities that are arising in their communities. So we want to continue to grow our sort of status as a data resource hub for folks that is information relevant to their localities. And then certainly want to work alongside the regional arts partners to look at what's working, what's not working. They're a critical piece of what we do, and we really value their partnership and support in all of this. And so we want to continue to improve that relationship and continue to refine it and make that work as best as it can for all of us. So with that, we've got the final report now. So we have the raw data as well, so we can keep that on hand to use in the future. And we're going to bring these final findings alongside the strategic framework development process. So that is that. Any questions or comments on any of that information?
I think that was wonderful for the research, that NASA has helped in the outreach that Maya has started and is encouraging all the staff to do that. I mean, that certainly makes it more impactful for the state, for everyone, for the artists, for the commission, and just knowledge about the Indiana Arts Commission in general. So thank you guys for all of your work and the entire staff. So you guys always do a great job.
I have a question is actually probably a two-part question. Are we doing arts homecomings? And that may be a separate discussion.
Yeah,
but
that is,
the reason I
yeah.
brought it up is because I just wonder, assuming that happens, if we don't have an opportunity to think about programming around some of these questions in terms of recruiting who's there, speaking, what other kind of activities might be there.
Yeah, so great question. We are not currently doing Arts Homecoming. We put a pause on that program in part because of all the outreach and gatherings through Lifelong Arts Indiana and then the Creative Teaching Award that we're doing. We are planning to do a large arts education comprehensive mammoth arts education conference next year in partnership with the Department of Education that we feel like could be a restarting point for an annual gathering that may be a bit more topic driven. So we have intentionally put a pause on that for now, again, because we've got these other partnerships going that are requiring convenings of their own in different institutions. But absolutely, we know the value of that annual come together. And so I think once we restarted and how we restarted, I think we'll be really informed by what we've learned here. Programs, did I get that largely?
Totally.
Okay. Fantastic.
Spot on.
Yeah. Great question. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Eric. I appreciate that. Moving on to Paige and Eric for programs, grants, and services.
Gracious out, everybody. I got quite a few slides to
Stretch, now's the time.
Yeah. I might have to stand myself so I don't fall asleep while I present. How many times have you done it? Yeah, luckily I've rehearsed this a few times. But I want to first start by thanking the team and everybody, and especially our regional arts partners to help us get to the point where we are today. It's been quite an effort over a long period of time. And so this is kind of a big deal. So I'm excited to be here and share with you the results of the work. So as always, want to start with a review of why we changed the arts organization support program to what we have changed. And that was because the way we were funding was not sustainable and it wasn't equitable in its distribution, as we learned from the Region 7 study group and other measures. Wasn't aligning with the why of our agency to create equitable access to the arts in Indiana. And we wanted to do a field-driven input process. So the changes that we made came from the field. And our goals were to create a more equitable and sustainable funding process. And that would allow the grantees to receive meaningful awards. This is what we heard from the field. These are the things that they wanted. And to implement a strategy that just didn't disadvantage, but truly did increase equitability and sustainability through some sort of funding strategy. So the main changes that we made, the organizations with a budget minimum of 20,000 were eligible to apply in all regions. So that was a shift, but obviously creating more equitable access to a strategic population. Those that were funded, they will go on 2 years of funding. And rather than having it was 1, 2, and 3, which was enigmatic, we just had one arts organization support program with the same universal criteria. And in terms of process, we did a lot. We streamlined the application. We created a detailed scoring rubric that we will show you because we're really proud of that scoring rubric. We want to show it to you today. Improved training for panelists. And we slightly modified how we did the public review. And then we implemented, I think, Eric and I's most favorite thing, which is the new funding framework tool, where we put in all the information from the panels, the scores, organizations, budget sizes, et cetera, and it allowed us the flexibility to make a few changes to get to the best possible funding scenario. And it allowed us very objective and accurate process, super speedy and amazing. So here are the results of having gone through the application process, the panel review, the scoring to funding recommendations. And this is what we're seeing. So by the numbers, we had 251 total applications to arts organization support program. And that's a 56% increase in 7 years. So you could see where the sustainability was getting a little concerning when we were funding 100% of the applications. We had 36 new applicants, and 14% of them were mostly from Region 7, which is not surprising. That's a central part of the state, most population. And we had 6 from Region 8, which was kind of a plot twist. We didn't see that coming. We are looking to recommend that 82% of the applications be funded. This is a slight increase from what we anticipated in our model, but from model to reality, it actually became very, very close. So to go team, to good job on that one. Here,
This looks at the number of grantees between last year and this year. And so that blue bar is the number of AOS grantees last year, and the orange one is what we're recommending this year. And so the key thing to look at on this one is in alignment with the equity priorities of the framework. There is a few less recommended in Region 7 than we had last year. And this is to sort of boost some of the other more rural organizations that have been historically excluded from this program. And so able to see that there's a little bit of a decrease there in Region 7 to try to distribute that a little bit more equitably across the regions. And this is the average award size, a single grant average award broken down by region. And again, that blue line is last year's average award and the orange is this year's average award. And it went up across the board, which is great and really exciting, but you can see it went up a lot more for those more rural regions, and then in the more urban regions, Region 3 and Region 7, it didn't increase quite as much, but looking in places like Region 5, a huge increase. So those meaningful awards really did come to fruition, especially in the more rural regions. And this looks at the total AOS allotment by region last year versus this year. And so that blue bar is what we're recommending this year, and that orange line is what happened last year. And so wherever that blue bar is above the orange line, that means that region got more total AOS funding this year. And so again, in alignment with the last couple that we looked at, most of the regions have an increase, and there's just slight decreases in Region 3 and Region 7 based on that equity strategy.
so we had the 4 equity goals, sustainability, make it equitable, meaningful awards, and without disadvantaging our under-resourced organizations. We wanted to measure, like, were we successful? Spoiler alert, we were successful. When looking at equity goals, we didn't fund 100% of the organizations that applied. So we have more financial sustainability there. We had over-delivered. We were anticipating that 75% would be funded, and we actually found 82%. And while the award size is still tied to budget size, the largest organization awards were not as large. So you'll see that the curve has sort of flattened. Eric showed that in a little bit. It also is a process that accommodates the growth that we anticipate continuing to occur in the state, which is a great thing. And we also found increased staff capacity because it cut down the time to pull funding recommendations together in half. So funding was distributed more equitably, and how we looked at that was in a variety of ways, but one key way that we wanted to look at was the organizations that are the smallest, the ones that traditionally have the least access to funding. They're so small. I'm specifically looking at organizations with a budget size of 20,000 to 50,000. They're small guys. We found that there were 34 applications in the entire pool that had that size budget. And all but 2 were recommended, which is really good to see. So we increased equitable access, and we didn't disadvantage small organizations with the changes in our process, changes to application, things of that nature. And 14 out of the 36 new applicants of this size were all funded. We're all recommended for funding, which is great. This is a big deal because these are very small organizations, all volunteer staff. This is kind of a heavy application, but our process was able to help them navigate through successfully, which is fantastic to see.
So here is the average award size. This is broken down by tier level. So we're looking at average award size and then organization size. So A is the smallest organizations and E is the biggest organizations. And the blue line is what we're recommending this year, and the orange is what happened last year. So a couple things.
No, reverse that. Blue is last year, orange is this year.
Yeah, blue is this year. Orange. is
Oh, yeah,
second.
sorry, I apologize. Right, yeah, sorry, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, yeah.
So couple things to look at here. One is you can see last year, once we got up to those bigger organizations, there's a pretty big increase in award in that orange line. It slopes up pretty steeply. Whereas in this year, it's a more, it's less of a steep slope there as you get to the bigger organizations. So there was more parity in the awards between what the smaller organizations got and what the bigger organizations got. And you can see on the E line that the average award for the bigger organizations did go down. It was at the orange dot and now it's at the blue dot, which speaks to what Paige mentioned earlier. And so really what we're doing here is trying to more equitably distribute the AOS funds across organization size. And so there's that's kind of smoothed out that curve there. And so last year there was a $16,000 difference in what the largest organizations got and what the smallest got. And this year that went down to 10. And so we're really proud of that more equitable distribution of funds and really making more meaningful awards for some of the smaller organizations.
Hey, Eric, is there any slide that indicates, I guess time would tell me this, but I'm curious now. Is there any slide that indicates what what these different tiers of organizations were like as a function or percentage of their overall budget?
Like what percentage did the AOS award make up of the
Correct.
total budget? We don't have a slide on that. I
Okay.
can get that information for you,
Okay.
absolutely. It's definitely an increased percentage of their budget this year, particularly for small organizations.
Yeah.
The award can be no more than 20% of the total cash income.
Sure.
But we definitely saw some smaller organizations that were seeing like 10%. The award would be 10% of the total cash income. So
Mhm.
there's that fine line to walk there of not wanting the grant to be such a crutch that if you don't get it, you're in deep trouble.
Right.
While also making more meaningful award. So we're doing that sort of tightrope there. Is there anything to add on that page?
No, I'm actually just sort of thinking through what would be an interesting outcome of that evaluation and then comparing FY 23 to FY 24
Yes.
specifically would
Yep.
be. And we could look at it by tier level.
Mhm.
Obviously, tier E it would go down the percentage, but it was already a pretty small percentage of the budget anyway. So we're happy to look into that if you like.
Yeah, I was just curious to know, like, with that small decrease for like the tier E's, how much of an increase did that look like? For the
Right.
Smaller.
How did that actually play out
Yeah.
with that curve as well? Yeah, happy to. We're obsessed with this sort of stuff. As if you couldn't tell.
So we just looked at organization size. So now we're looking at geography. And that blue line is the metropolitan average award over the past 6 fiscal years or so. And the orange is the rural average award. And the thing to note here is the space between the two and a lot of the previous fiscal years. And then you look to the far right hand side in FY 24 and they're converging, meaning that the metropolitan average award and the rural award are much more similar than it used to be, which again is aligning with the equity priorities of the framework to give rural organizations a more meaningful award. And so we're seeing that convergence in the average award. And this just breaks down a little bit more specifically what those average awards look like. And so for what we're recommending this year, that rural average award is a little over 11,000, whereas it was 7,000 last year, and the metro average 12,500, whereas last year it was 10. And so pretty significant increase for the rural average award, which we're really happy to see, while also increasing it across the board as well. So that's really exciting. And particularly in the small organizations of less than $50,000, they also saw a meaningful increase in their award, which is a priority for this as well. This is the average AOS award by fiscal year. So this is like the whole pool, what was just the average award given out, regardless of size, location, none of that's factored. And so we broke that $12,000 threshold. It's the average award for the entire AOS pool this year in the recommendations, which is great. And so there's a really, again, meaningful increase in award for everyone, which is.
It's really wonderful to see that line going up and not continuing its downward trend.
Yes, yes.
It's pretty satisfying. It really is. So we wanted to also see what the panelists thought about the process changes. They love the rubric. This is all the panelists as we were getting feedback from them. Felt that the training really prepared them well. Other state agencies that were part of this process loved the training, and so they wanted to steal and adapt it, which is always a great compliment. They appreciated the streamlined application that we did, and we did not have the financial statement available to them to review for a lot of reasons. And it was a bit of a split ticket on that. Some really wanted that financial statement and others were like, thank God it wasn't there. So when we looked at returning panelists in particular, the folks that had done an arts organization panel review before, and this new iteration, they equally praised the criteria, felt it empowered them to provide clear and more objective feedback. They valued the increased stipend, which is what we also contributed to the program. And they felt that not having the financial information there was good. And they indicated, and this was an unintended consequence of that, the rubric and the scoring criteria prompted greater scrutiny. So that was one of the things that was kind of surprising, and increased time. And this is like one of the criteria areas of the rubric to give you an indication of what it looked like. It's a lot of words, but the words, there's key words that the brain can pattern on. So once you get that pattern in, it's pretty, makes it more simple to go through the process. Just breaks down the criteria and then provides more specific scoring ranges and what success would look like in these areas. So we wanted to look at how this process will inform how we evaluate the Arts Project Support Program. And we certainly learned from this process that input from the field is incredibly critical. We also wanted to deepen our inquiry around the application review process in general, and then the public review process as well. How might we leverage internal expertise, and what is really benefiting the outcome of what we're looking to do? How can we improve that? And we want to make sure that we use a framework to determine awards, because we were just like, this is so cool and it's super accurate and amazing, and we want to be able to do that again. So we're going to get the Math Smart people to help us with that as well. We also want to make sure that we schedule more time for ourselves between panels and getting here today, because that was a little bit more than we were anticipating. So we also wanted to look to consider things for FY 26-27. If you know Maya Michelson, you know that she is constantly coming to me for other things to consider for 26-27 that are not on the slide. So we are really excited to think through moving forward down the road. We want to also think about eligibility. We have a very specific definition of an arts organization. Might we be able to expand that a little bit? We also, like just talked about, it makes sense to evaluate that panel review process. It's about improving. We can always find room for growth. The field in general across the country, state agencies are also looking at this too. Now that we have a great application, we want to be able to share examples to the applicants down the road to show them what exemplary looks like. We also want to evaluate funding to small organizations. Interestingly, we saw a decrease in applications from small rural organizations. So we want to investigate and find a process to empower them. Again, allow more time. So there is going to be an impact. 44 organizations are not recommended for funding. That's a big deal for us. We haven't done this. So we wanted to we want to help. Help is important. This is what we do. So we have developed a capacity building, a grant program specifically to those that are not funded. Only those that are not funded will be eligible to apply to bring somebody in to help them strengthen an area that the panelists found that there's great room for growth. So that we have available. We are also going to implement the training for smaller organizations in general. So different from the grant, more strategic, like this is what you can learn around financial systems and things of that nature. We also want to build awareness of other funding opportunities that are available to them. So what's next? Monday. Monday's the big day. That's when the notifications go out to all of our applicants, whether they're funded or not funded. And we'll be communicating with organizations that aren't funded. They are welcome to contact Maya, Connie, and the team. They've done a great job crafting an email message and to share that that is available to them to deepen their inquiry. We will have the panel's comments uploaded, so that will be immediately available to them when the email is released, should they wish to get that. And the regional arts partners and other IAC staff will be available to assist in those communications. So we want to make sure we have a shared understanding for these folks. And comms team has done a great job to empower that to happen. Eric?
So after we get those notifications out, they'll begin the contracting process with the state. Andre, Suzette, and I will be hard at work, crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's, and we'll get that funding out the door throughout the fall. And then the grant period will be the same as it was actually July 1 to June 30 following the fiscal year, and final grant reports, and we'll give it another go. So that is what's ahead for next steps after they get their notifications.
I just have a question. How are we communicating to the organizations that were not funded? Is that through telephone calls? Is that through emails? Is that through letter?
Yes, it will be an automated, well, it'll be an email that will go out through our grants management system with language that Connie's put together about that. Do you want to say?
Yeah, absolutely. So we know that it's an important communication and we're not sharing good news. And so we've taken care and worked for a long time on this message, but we've also included in this message and we'll be communicating with these applicants that Maya and Paige are available for conversations. And we encourage folks that have questions about their application or about the process to connect after they receive that notification to schedule a time to discuss the application and process. And so Maya's calendar is held for that, and she is gracious taking those calls. And our intention is also to take those calls on behalf of the regional arts partners, since these were AOS program changes. We will be handling most of these communications. But we are also in that communication, making sure to share news of the capacity building opportunity that's coming, as well as other funding opportunities from both the IAC and from the National Endowment for the Arts that are currently accepting applications.
Thank you. I love that proactive approach. Very well done.
And
this is great, by the way, just like fantastic work for all of you guiding through this. Just to make sure I understand the sort of mixed bag feedback from the panelists about less financial information. I believe I maybe heard you in a different meeting say that's because staff did review the financials, but it's not for the panel, so that there is some sort of pass of like, yes, the financials cause no concerns, correct?
absolutely, yeah, we thoroughly reviewed the financial information and to ensure budget accuracy and identify any concerns for like risk mitigation. Absolutely, we just didn't have the panelists review it because financial statements are unique to the organization, and rather than having slogged through that, we certainly asked about financial information from the applicant, just narrative wise, but thank you for that clarification, Anne.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
We all agreed that we wanted to see more of the arts expanded to the rural areas. And we see now that we're shoving some money that direction to make that happen. But like in the smaller communities, like my area, Region 12, it's not a huge difference, and a lot of that area is rural. And so there's not as many art organizations to shoot the money to. And so are we, besides shoving them money, are we helping them to understand how they can grow their communities?
Absolutely.
The arts.
And Yeah, that part of the state, there's so few arts organizations, and Alex and I were just talking about that last night. Absolutely, we have new, every county funded program that we're gonna be doing to work with organizations in each of these counties to ensure that funding is there. The meaningful award for these smaller organizations is incredibly valuable for that, because that empowers them to make more impact. And the other element is we do plan, and we were talking with the partners yesterday, to bring smaller organizations together and empower them to understand the tools and resources that are available to them. We can bring in expertise to increase that, the strengthening the organization. Simply understanding how to do some financial tools can really bring in more time available to do cool stuff in their areas. So that's really.
Glad to hear that, because I think they'll need some assistance on how to grow their organizations.
And you're right, Ruth Ann, increasing the award size is an important first step, but it's only the first step.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
And so, and Paige touched on it a little bit, and we don't have it as an agenda item because we're not ready to sort of share the guidelines with you yet, but we do have a budget line in for FY25. A new program we're calling it county funded, where we're going to go into those counties where we are not directly investing and bring funds in to help build out either existing arts organizations or help bring, to fruition nascent organizations or emerging arts organizations or partners that provide art services in counties where we're not. And that's part of it. But then again, to Paige's point, capacity building existing smaller organizations are a piece of that. So I think this is the first step, but it's only the first. Yeah.
Well, I'm elated.
Yeah.
I've ever since I've been
Yeah.
a part of this, I have wanted to see more equity across the board.
Yeah.
And I think we're definitely
First step.
in the right direction.
Is there anything we can do to assist with folks who or organizations that don't get awarded that might have questions or from our particular region? Is there anything that we can do? Maybe not, maybe that's something you want us to stay way out of, but if it's helpful, I think we'd love to assist.
And you want to say a little bit about talking points?
Yeah, absolutely. For those of you, and I think certainly for those of you who feel comfortable engaging in those conversations, especially if there's organizations that you have relationships with that aren't recommended for funding this year. We wanted to make sure that everyone felt comfortable about all the details of the process and evaluation. And so we do have a document prepared that we're happy to share with you that just kind of outlines the process and the results of this funding recommendation in FY24. And so I'm happy to share that with you so that you feel prepared to have those conversations. And I think another key step is just helping folks be aware of other opportunities that are coming in and really making sure that we keep folks in our network. And we want to continue to maintain relationships with arts organizations, even if they are recommended for AOS. We very much know that they are vital to the fabric of arts and creativity in our state. And so anything that you can do to continue to have relationships with them as a commissioner and as an individual, it's really key. So we'll be sure to be in touch with that messaging. If you ever have any questions about that, or if there's conversations that you suddenly maybe don't feel comfortable answering the specifics of, whether that's about maybe the application process or the review comments, please feel free to direct them back to us, but we're happy to come alongside you in those conversations. But we do appreciate that support. Thank you so much for that.
This may fall into the category, be careful what you wish for, but we were talking last night about just, generally speaking, a gap in understanding about the role of the commission, that there are commissioners in all these districts, that those districts align with certain organizations and so forth. I would not be at all opposed to being mentioned in that communication to the people who are both getting funded and not getting funded in my district. And obviously I don't really want to get a tsunami of irritated email, but I don't think that's going to happen. B, I have options for where to direct that. I think there's some benefit, and I don't know that we've done that in the past when we're communicating, here's your award. To say, by the way, your commissioner is X. So I'll just toss it out there as something I would be open to if I take more thought and consideration and discussion with people to do that, but that might be a nice point at which to kind of connect some dots.
Yeah, I appreciate, that's a great thought, and I know that some of the folks here today and on the call were a part of some of the initial conversations to inform some organizations about these changes, and so if you were a part of those conversations and then you see perhaps that some of those organizations were unfortunately not recommended for funding, it might be a great touch point if you do notice that on the list today. We will certainly talk about that in terms of how the notification process will work, but that's also a great note for the future, and we really appreciate that offer. And we'll certainly, and we'll touch on this later, but the intention is to once again ask you to come alongside the panelist appreciation process throughout the summer. And so I know we'll be tying you in there, and we appreciate the wonderful work you've all done there in the last few years. So I really appreciate the openness to expanding that continued role. Thank you.
Chad, to your question, the commissioner's understanding and endorsement of the process and comfort level with what we've gone through is really the most important support you can provide to us as an agency and as staff. And it's why I so appreciate the work that Eric and Paige have done today to sort of share with you what happened, what we did, and then what happened and sort of what's next. So want to make sure you're all clear on, again, where we are and that you are comfortable. That's really, for us, most important.
Other questions? I think my little clicker died. Like, it was too long of a pause. It was just like, oh, we had the input. So preemptive. Good job.
Sorry, we skipped ahead.
You were psychic. You knew it was coming. All right. So this is the next step. We have a lot of funding recommendations today that we're going to share with you on these slides. And ask that you keep all these confidential until those notifications go out on Monday with recommendations, right? If it's approved, we want to make sure that it goes out systematically. It's going to be the FY 24-25 arts organization support recommendations, the project support recommendations, regional arts partners, traditional arts Indiana, and the calendar year 2023 cultural district recommendations as well. So we got a few to get through there. Eric, you want to go ahead and share your overview?
Yeah. This is just a quick rundown of the panelists. The RAPs were immensely vital and central in all of this, as was the ISC staff, and we've had 146 panelists review applications, 486 applications were reviewed. We had 34 total panels over 2 weeks, including a state holiday. So it was a full-on, full court press to make this happen. Really grateful for everyone involved, panelists, RAPs, IT staff, to make it all happen. So this is the combined numbers, APS and AOS. We have 405 applicants recommended, 75 counties recommended for funding, and 117 combined new applicants between AOS and APS combined. So here we go. This is the total grantees by fiscal year, APS and AOS combined. And to Paige's point earlier about sustainability, over the big picture, you can see that's going up and continues to go up, which is why we did some of the changes in AOS. So here's the basic AOS breakdown with the total amount and the average award. So we can kind of roll through these. APS, same deal, total amount going into APS this year, 235 total applications, 198 recommended. So give you a little bit on APS. 91% of rural applicants were recommended, which is really exciting. And that's an 83, I think, or no. Yeah, 83% of new applicants were recommended, and 63 out of 64 counties were recommended. And these numbers are as a result of funding an application in each county before going and funding a second application in a county. So we're excited about that. This breaks down APS by the type of activity. And the big ones this year were arts instruction, fairs and festivals, and concerts, performances, and readings. Those were overwhelmingly the bulk of the applicants, but also what ended up getting funded as well. And APS grantees, we're really excited this year to award 198 APS grantees, which is a big increase, and it's been going up since FY21. So excited to do that as well.
All right, so here are our funding recommendations, and we're going to start with Region 1. And as a cue, the organizations that are highlighted in red are not funded, and the ones that are green are new to arts organization support. So these are the recommendations for Region 1, which is sort of the northwest part of the state, Gary area.
And I would just remind the commissioners that all of this information is in the portal as well. So
Exactly. So we're doing the arts organization support and project support combined in our recommendations. Region 1 project support, they have a lot of applications for project support. So we started with A through M. If at any time you have a question or would like me to slow down, please interrupt. Otherwise, I will just cruise right through these. Everybody good with that? All right, cool. All right, thumbs up from Ann. We're sure good to go. All right, and then N through Z. Looking at Region 2, which is north part of the state, South Bend area, where Kayla represents. Here are recommendations for arts organization support. Like we have 2 not recommended, and several new organizations applying in Region 2. And for project support, lots of new organizations in project support here, which is always great to see that broadening of impact. And in Region 3, which is our Northeast Territory, Allen County, Fort Wayne area, arts organization support recommendations. Also have quite a few new folks in the pool in Region 3 as well. And then our project support recommendations. Looking at Region 4, which is the Greater Lafayette area, arts organization support. They had a lot of new arts organizations last year, so probably why we don't see as many this year. And then our project support recommendations. Looking at Region 5, Greater Muncie area, our AOS. And then our APS. And Region 6, Greater Terre Haute area, AOS. And an APS. Now for Region 7, we have 27 slides for Region 7. It's big, big. So we are going to start these are not Marion County in Region 7. So Marion County occupies quite a few pages here by itself. And these are the arts organization support recommendations for all counties outside of Marion in Region 7. And then Marion County organizations A through H. So you can see immediately there's a big difference between these two, just this one county.
Were there any common things between those organizations that were previously funded that did not receive funding this year?
Yes, we're still diving a little bit more deeply into it to discernment around the qualitative and the quantitative, but there do seem to be a couple areas, not necessarily in Marion County, but in other parts of the state. So Marion County tends to be very unique in how it plays out. But we want to do a little bit more analytics before we feel comfortable sharing that. But definitely. H through Z. Those are arts organization support funding recommendations for regions. And then for project support. You can see our priority was new or applicants or folks that had not been funded in project support previously, which is where you're seeing a lot of these green bars being recommended for funding as a result of priority. Really exciting to see so many new organizations be funding this program. And then the second page for Region 7, Marion County.
I'm really afraid it's gonna bring off the hook. once this comes
Well,
out
so I would
with
say,
areas that
yeah.
didn't get-
right, well, I mean, this is project support. Project support is always.
It's always very different for
Yeah,
project support. It's very competitive in Marion County in particular. There's a huge number of organizations and we just don't have a great deal of funding to allocate to this part of the state. It needs to be distributed across.
Some of these that aren't getting refunded for financial sizable support. And they probably were counting on that somewhat, and it's gonna.
True, but not so much in Region 7 as in other parts of the state. So this area of the state is unique in many, many different ways. And we have a lot of conversations about how to address that. We've talked about, maybe even carving out the one county, what are certain things that we can do so that there is greater parity in this part of the state. So, but they're not as reliant on this funding in this part as other parts of the state, for sure.
I do get that.
Yeah, Region 12 in your area, oh yeah, that could be something.
Devastating.
Yeah, which speaks to why we need to be doing this same process in arts project support, which we are doing, right? Because we recognize that there are some challenges here.
Yeah, definitely. And being really mindful of change and its impact potential and how we could be strategic and how that would play out. Region 8, Greater Bloomington area. Arts organization support recommendations. And our project support recommendations. In the rural parts of the state, we'll see fewer arts organizations and more project support, which is very common. Lots of great new ones in there. You also see a lot of towns. That was Maya running around the state meeting with everybody, which is great. Good to see. Want to see that investment in towns around creative development is really powerful. Region 9, Greater Columbus area. I feel like people should applaud. Hey, go Columbus. AOS. And our project support recommendations. And then Region 10, Evansville. AOS recommendations. And then our project support recommendations. Again, we see a lot more applications. And finally, Region 12, which is the Albany area. This is what Ruth Ann's talking about. We got 3 arts organizations in a multi-county area of the state. And project support recommendations. And we also have our regional arts partners, of which we have 11, and we have a cumulative award recommendations for them at 134,000-ish. And then Traditional Arts Indiana, which is a very important partner of ours to work with our traditional artists throughout the state. And here are our recommendations for both. specifically the regional arts partners around arts organization support and or project support. And then we have the cultural district program, which is specific to just cultural districts that are already a part of our designated communities, so of which there are only 12 designated cultural districts in the state of Indiana. And we funded 9 of them at $5,000 each. And here are the recommendations for that. And the folks that we did not fund were simply just not eligible because they were finishing up elements of their past year's project funding. So it's simple as that. Ooh. Cool. So I think one thing I wanted to note about cultural district funding recommendations, they could either do planning, and 3 of the cultural districts are working on a plan together because they're 3 of them are geographically close, or to share awareness of the importance of cultural districts. And that, having just noticed the next slide, is it for our funding recommendations. So we're simply looking for your approval in hopes that you will approve these recommendations today.
Thank you, Paige. Are there any questions before we take a motion for approval? I think we have those answered along the way. Okay, I'll take a motion for the approval of the answer. Page outline.
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
So these are still confidential.
Yes, that's correct. Yes, they are confidential until Monday. And Stephanie, if you could do roll call, please.
Thank you. Azizi?
Aye.
Alberta?
Aye.
Chad?
Aye.
Rena?
Aye.
Ruth Ann?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
Renee?
Aye.
Kelsey?
Aye.
Dusty?
Aye.
Anne?
Aye.
Jake?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to take a short 10-minute break and thank you. Yes.
You're fine.
Yeah, okay, that's all good. Look at all that. I think we're good. Yeah. I think Region 3. Yeah, Region 3. Okay, we are now reconvened and gonna turn, we've got a couple of things, page for projects approval.
Yes, we had mysteriously cut down for some reason on the sheet, the number of organizations that were recommended for Arts Project Support. I was a little kind of surprised by myself. I was like, well, it doesn't look like the number of organizations that I was just saying how many more there are. So this is the list of recommendations for Arts Project Support for Region 12, which is actually quite a few. And a lot of schools. So Region 12 is a pretty hot-button area in the state when it comes to project support, of which we're very proud. And nice to see new organizations as well.
So we should probably have a move to approve since these were not projected on the screen. So if we don't mind, just, you know, belt and suspenders this, make sure we got everybody.
Second.
Stephanie, if you could do roll call.
Aye.
Alberta,
Aye.
Chad,
Aye.
Raina,
Aye.
Vivian,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
Renee,
Aye.
Chelsea,
Aye.
Jake,
Aye.
Dusty,
Aye.
Anne.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. And Connie, Arts Trust.
Yes, thank you so much. So for those of you who may be new to the commission or who need a refresher, the sale of the Arts Trust license plate, which has our logo and Celebrate the Arts, you'll see here in the bottom right corner. The sale of those plates feed into a trust in which we can withdraw those funds for use of supporting arts and creativity in the state. And for the past few years, these funds have gone to support an arts project support program or project in every county in which there were eligible applications recommended for funding. And so this is not an additional funding, but this is just a special designation that their funds are in part supported from funds from the sale of Arts Trust license plate. And so we give these folks some additional assets and to help tell their story and also use their wonderful authority to highlight all the great work that's being done. Thanks to the trust, but also just by wonderful organizations across the state. And so just wanted to let you guys know which organizations and applications were recommended to be the Arts Trust designee in each of their counties. And so there's this slide and then the next. So we will be in touch with these folks soon to let them know of their special designation, and we'll be providing them with assets to help spread the word about their special designation. But just wanted to give you guys a heads up, and if there's any questions about this program or about the Arts Trust license plate, I'm happy to answer those now or at any point in the future. Always please feel free to reach out. Are there any questions that I can answer?
Is there a criteria for how those organizations were chosen?
Yes, so we, because they're all recommended for funding based upon the commission or the panel of process, they're all already APS approved applicants. So then we take into consideration a number of factors such as score or the type of project. We try to have a vast array of types of programs and types of communities, the artistic medium. And so look for as much of a spread across the state as possible. Sometimes they might be the only recommended funding in their county. But for others, we kind of start to look more into the application to determine good fit for the program.
This does not require approval. This is just for your information and understanding. This is one way that we get a story about the impact of the license plate out in the state. Thank you, Connie, for that update.
Thank you.
Next we have FY24 capacity building grant guidelines.
So these are the guidelines that or the program that I referred to and a little bit earlier. So we are sharing this draft review. Will be fine-tuned with dates to make sure that it fits in best possible scenario. It is to provide an opportunity for funding to organizations, like I said earlier, that are not funded in the Arts Organization Support Program, so that they have the opportunity to deepen that area and strengthen it moving forward. So here's just simply, do you have any questions about this program, any of the reviewing the guidelines in your packet? Great.
It is an action item, so I would love a motion in a second. So moved.
Second.
Stephanie?
Azizi,
Aye.
Alberta,
Aye.
Chad,
Aye.
Rena,
Aye.
Ruth Ann,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Greg.
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
Renee,
Aye.
Kelsey,
Aye.
Jake,
Aye.
Dusty,
Aye.
Ann.
Aye.
Thank you, motion carries.
Thank you, Stephanie. Next we have artist services, so Jordan.
Hi, everybody. So as Eric talked about earlier, we are pursuing an artist needs assessment, and we're gonna talk about the purpose and process today. So before we can assess their needs, we want to talk about what they are already being offered. And so we have these programs, On-Ramp, which you're familiar with, which is a 3-day intensive entrepreneurship workshop that comes along with a accompanied $2,000 grant they're able to put into action the lessons that they were taught. Then you have Lifelong Arts Indiana. This is an external partnership with funding from FSSA. The Artist Services Hub, which is an online resource platform. Traditional Arts Indiana, which is an external partnership with IU. And then Arts Integration and Residency for Educators, which is also a partnership with DOE. So these are some historic programs that we have that are no longer being offered since COVID. First, we have the Individual Advancement Program, which was last funded in 2020, fiscal year 2020, right around a little over 100K. And that more so was just a funding opportunity for artists to pursue a project of their choosing. And then Arts in the Park and Historic Sites, which also last funded in fiscal year 2020, right over 200K. Which also was a partnership with DNR and the State Museum and Historic Sites, just bringing arts into those different areas. So the difference between those last programs and these programs were that these two programs are not tied to a training component. So all of our previous programs that I just spoke about are directly tied to a training component. So we also will talk about
Yeah.
We'll talk about the Arts in the Parks Historic Sites. There were about 49 artists funded through that program, as well as 43 artists in the IEP program, with around 92 artists funded. And then this past fiscal year, we funded around 67 through On-Ramp, Lifelong Arts, and the Arts Integration Residency. And so you'll see between those years, the decrease in funding around the state in the different counties. So we're not reaching as many artists in as many different counties as we would like. So we want to change that. You'll also see with the funding decreasing, we're still not being able to reach them with direct grants and direct services and programs as well. So as Eric mentioned, with this NASA survey findings, with this funding, the survey we were able to conduct, urban and rural artists have different challenges. So the artists are saying that they don't have enough time to create art. It's difficult for them to find that time to create art. And those in the rural regions are talking about the affording of supplies. So those are some implications through that survey. And again, as Eric mentioned, the survey, the implications of the artist survey is a small pool, but we're taking it for what it is. And then the common challenges among all artists were that connection to each other, artist to artist as well as artist to community and vice versa. So they're saying that they're not able to find artists. And then artists are saying, how do I connect with these organizations? And so we want to help bridge that gap. And so in doing that, we're gonna ask them what they want. What do you need? Is it project support or is it something else? Is it capacity building? We don't know until we ask. And so how are we gonna assess that? We're gonna facilitate some convenings. We're going to serve as both a program and evaluation. So the convenings itself is gonna act as a program. And then the benefit of that is that they are asking to be connected to one another. So we're gonna give them that time with one another. It's also strategic collection of field input as well. And we're gonna do that research-led and based with the Tamarack Foundation. They're a West Virginia group of individuals who have done this sort of thing in their state. It's more of a table talk setting for them to just be able to casually and informally talk with one another. Of course, we'll be there listening and evaluating the qualitative research as well. Eric, you want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So the folks from the Tamarack Foundation, it's a team of two people, one who's from West Virginia and is a community grassroots organizer in that space, and one from West Virginia University who specializes in community engaged research methodologies. And so we're going to work with both of them to sort of develop the methodology for Indiana, as well as learn how to facilitate a meaningful conversation that, like Jordan noted, is very informal and sort of kitchen table in nature.
I neglected to speak on Elaine at the top. So Elaine is our facilitator and program design around on-ramp. But she's also going to help us design what those convenings look like, what artists we want to be involved, who do we want to intentionally hear from. And so she's going to help us design that component of the convenings as well. Again, the benefits of both of these are professional development for both IEC staff, the facilitators that we choose and select, as well as the reps. They may come in as community organizers as well. And then just a better connection to our artists and understanding what they want, what they need, and bridging that service gap in our disciplines as well. We do a lot of visual art with our artists, but we're missing out on that performance art as well as filmmakers as they emerge in our state as well. So here's a brief timeline. We are going to design the training and finalize that with Elaine, what those communities look like in August. We're going to do some recruitment of reps as community organizers and facilitators with them and alongside them as well. And then in September, we're going to begin we're actually going to begin training. So for the convenings, and then the convenings will actually happen between September and December. We'll assess the data that we collect in December through February, and then that will feed into our program design. We want these findings to actually feed a program that we design to speak to those needs. So we want to see more on that first slide of offerings from what we gather in this assessment. And we'll present that to you in the March QPM in 2024. Any questions?
Does anyone have any questions? It's a long time coming. I just want to say, and I want to thank Jordan for ushering it forward. We artists really, as it relates to who we supported, we put artists to the side, as a result of COVID, and there's some, obviously, we're seeing the detriment of that, right? We had to, yes. The decision was made, I'll put it that way, to do that. And now we need to step back into that space and figure out how we can mess it. So I appreciate Jordan's leadership in this. I'm really excited to hear what we get from the conversation. So stay tuned, and we'll be back to you in March with their George and Eric's observations and recommendations. So
Brandon, did you have a question? I still don't know how to ask it quite right. Okay.
I guess in there, but yeah, I'll figure that out.
Certainly understand that.
Thank you guys.
And I would just say for commissioners, you know, if we're in your region and you're interested, you know, if you would like the opportunity to sit in on these or maybe participate or at least be, you know, fly on the wall, listen to the conversations, let Jordan know. Because we are going to be around the state in various places. So if you have real interest in engaging in those conversations or at least hearing the conversations that are had and observing the process, let her know because she'd welcome your engagement. So it will be a much more informed process. So thank you, Jordan. Lifelong arts, Stephanie.
Yes. I'm gonna do a little bit of review. Some of you, this will be information you've heard before, but I think for some of you, it'll be a refresher of things you might have not remember right now. So in the fall of 2020, IAC was invited to participate in a national movement to increase arts access for older adults. After designing and implementing a pilot program in 2021, we quickly found that in Indiana, there was a high demand for these services all across the state. So over the past 3 years, we've developed the Lifelong Arts Indiana program to meet this demand. Creative aging is, there we go. Creative aging definition is the terminology we use for overarching for all this work, and it is defined as any program that leverages the arts to maintain or improve well-being of older adults. And older adults, sometimes we say 55 plus, sometimes we say 60 plus, sometimes we say 65. It really depends on who we're partnering with in that moment and what community we're looking at. So just generally speaking, older adults, and as we all know, we're all aging, so we're all in the aging population. Someone said on a webinar recently, if you wake up in the morning, you're aging successfully. So, as part of this work, we dove into the research to see what benefits creative aging could have in our communities. And the more we attended webinars, I read the research and developed the work, the more it was evident that arts and creativity is an essential component for healthy aging and ultimately for healthy communities. There's virtually no part of aging that can't be positively impacted by the introduction of arts activities. It helps with cognition, memory, physical health, like better movement and less prescription medication, and it helps with mental health by reducing the feelings of isolation, helplessness, and boredom. And we go over those a lot in the trainings we do for aging service providers and artists. So from the research, we know that with advances in medicine and lifestyles in our society, globally, folks are living longer. For the first time in world history, more people are over 60 than under 5. By 2025, nearly a quarter of all people in the world will be over 60 years old. According to the WHO, by 2030, 1 in 6 people will be age 60 and over. Oh, and here's my slide for that. I got ahead of myself. We got lots of stats around. We all know the demographics are shifting in Indiana specifically as a state with a large rural population and also globally. So over the past 3 years, we've been developing this program, the Lifelong Arts Indiana program. That's our design program. This year with substantial partnership with the Family and Social Services Administration, Division of Aging, we have seen the program strategically expand in several directions. So much so that we had to create a flow chart. So at the top here, you'll see there's 3 big buckets on this side. And please refer to the legend. There's colors, there's shapes, and there's sizes and shapes. So the 3 big buckets at the top are artists, aging service providers, and arts organizations. And arts organizations here are in gray, and the legend tells us that's because it's tentative, but coming soon. Okay, tentative. Aging service providers are defined as organizations who work with older adults as their work, right? And some of them, it's their full-time work. So senior centers and assisted living facilities and places that serve older adults. And then there's other community sites like libraries and YMCA's and other community centers that do a lot of community work, and a portion of that is working with older adults. So either of those types of organizations fall under the aging services provider category, and sometimes you'll see it abbreviated ASP. We also have artists here split into two categories. We have returning artists who started with us in the program in 2021, have gone through training and piloted a brand new program under their area of expertise in their community. We're calling them returning artists. They're going to be able to be funded again. And then we have a large batch of new artists, just recently approved, 47 new artists, 16 returning artists fall in that bucket of artists. So the new artists go through a training program. The returning artists already had training, so they skip that step, and they all then end up in a funding mechanism. Each of these groups has access to one, training, all three. So you'll see artists have training, aging service provider training, and arts organizations will have training. They're very similar, but they are distinctly tailored to each of those types of audiences' needs and approaches. For example, we don't have to convince the artist the impact of the arts, right? But in the aging service provider training, they don't do arts day in, day out. We spend time during that training talking about what are the arts, what are all the different disciplines you could think of, and they go, oh, I never thought about storytelling as an art form. We spend more time on that in the aging service provider training, and in the artist training, we talk about best practices for working with older adults, which the aging service providers usually already know. But otherwise, very similar. What are the best practices of creative aging? How to design programming that impacts based on those research impacts that we know exist. And so they all have access to training, and they all have access to funding, different varying amounts depending on which part of the flow chart you're in. New artists get to try out a program, pilot something at $1,500 grants. Returning artists already have their program underhand, and they are sometimes expanding or trying something on top of what they already do. They're at $3,500. Aging service providers, they're more institutions, so they're a little bit higher at $5,000. And the arts organizations, when they come into this program, we're going to fund them at a substantial level. $15,000 to $20,000 is our estimate right now. We're looking at having 4 arts organizations involved in this first phase of arts organization, lifelong arts, at that substantial level. And we really want those arts organizations to become mentors to the field. So we're going to invest in these mentor organizations, and then they can become models in subsequent years. What am I missing? So all the creative aging artists who go through the training, both the returning and new, and they get funded, and they're practicing their work, and they're testing it, and they're coming back with some great results. They become what we're calling kind of a roster of expert creative aging artists. And that roster is then available to the aging service providers as they're looking for artists to partner with in their communities. So we give them a $5,000 grant, and part of that funding, part of that $5,000 needs to go to artists and invite them into the facility. So, you know, I'm going to hire this artist, have them come to the library every Thursday for 6 weeks, and we'll gather in the community room, and we're going to do loom weaving. If you remember, I probably told about Peggy Taylor in New Harmony. She does weaving, and she did it at the library there in New Harmony called the Working Man's Institute. So that sort of thing is what we're looking for to support older adults in the community. In total, you know, we're looking at about 170 projects across Indiana, more than 2,000 older adults served, and over 75 artists trained. We're really expanding our whole in every direction, right? I'm working with Jordan, I'm working with Paige. You've got all these different directions we're going in for this program. That's it. There's Peggy Taylor. That's in Davies County, Washington, Indiana. The other thing about this program is that we are reaching a lot of counties that we wouldn't traditionally reach with AOS and APS. So this is one of the mechanisms we can use to say, okay, you know, Davies County doesn't have an arts organization, but they have a senior center. And we're able to invest $5,000 in that senior center, which is probably more than they would have gotten through an APS grant, honestly, and support the older adults in that community through this program. So while creative aging can't solve every issue that's related to aging, our experience is showing that there are only benefits to increasing participation in the arts for older adults. And additionally, for our agency, this work of engaging with older adults is accessing a treasure trove of artists and artistic expression that has previously been untapped by us. We have more older adults who are the artists leading the programs. This program far outpaces the demographics for that. So if we look at on-ramp, it skews younger. When I have artists applying into the lifelong arts program, you know, we do the same outreach and, you know, we have these two programs that are both for artists. This one, we're looking at 40 to 50% of the applicants being 60 plus. That's a big thing they're leading, and it's peer-to-peer, and it's really great. So we're accessing through this new program, we're accessing a lot of new artists and resources in our state. So no action for lifelong arts today. This was just an update. You'll see in your materials, I've listed the 16 returning artist projects. They're really fun. You can see I made them short. So it's like Peggy Taylor in New Harmony. She's doing media at the library. Then you can see for your region what artists are going to be doing creative aging in your part of the state. And those are the first ones going out. We have just those 16 returning artists. They're out, they're ready to go starting in July. The new artists will submit their proposals. They have to go through training first in July and August, and they will submit proposals in the fall. So we'll see another huge wave of 50 or more projects by the end of the year. So check those out.
So Stephanie, I know we're also evaluating, doing research on the program. When do you anticipate that we would have the report on sort of the outcome?
Good
Remember,
question.
is that next 2024 December?
It's probably the end of 2024. Yeah, we have contracted with the University of Indianapolis, which has the Center for Aging and Community. And so they're kind of experts for aging services programming. And they are designing evaluation tools for every step of that flow chart. They are doing observations and focus groups and getting a lot of data on this program. And so we hope to have the report from them, but we're going to be December 2024.
Any other questions for Stephanie? Well, as a senior citizen, I really appreciate going into the lifelong arts. Unfortunately, I'm going to be moving, so if Tennessee doesn't have a program like that, I'm going to have to connect you.
They do. Tennessee is one of the other high achieving creative aging states. So there you go. We're
Yes, I'm moving to the right place. Okay, thank you, Stephanie. Indiana Department of Education.
Oh, I got in the wrong place. Well, I didn't get to talk about that. All right. I just wanted to also say that the next aging service provider training is in Bloomington on June 23rd. And we have one in Evansville and one in Gary, September 9th. So we have already 83 folks who have signed up for these trainings, but I'm hoping to get some more. Join us if you want. All right, Fellowship for Creative Teaching. Okay, welcome. We're welcoming the 2023 inaugural cohort of Creative Teaching Fellows. In March, we sent out an application to teachers all across the state through partnership with the DOE and through some other communications list we have that has all the schools and districts on it. And we invited people to apply for this fellowship program. And we got 50 some applications. I was pretty happy because people didn't know what this program was. So good job, comms, getting the word out about a brand new program, and they took the leap, they signed up, they said, I'll try this fellowship program out. And so we've selected 20, just a quick map of where they represent all over the state. We were mindful of the geography, as well as different grade levels, different subject areas. These teachers represent Spanish teachers, a lot of English language arts, some history, science, and math, and one agriculture teacher, which I'm very excited about. I'm really excited to see how that one develops. And this is I wanted to mention a thank you to Kelsey Pieper, who helped to vet all the applications, read all the applications and helped score them, along with Lacey Boland from the Department of Education. And we have these educators. We met with them in May for the first time, and we are meeting with them tomorrow, Saturday, for our second online meeting. The Fellowship for Creative Teaching is focused on supporting arts integration, learning, and practices. Arts integration is a teaching approach that combines art skills with other subject areas, like I said, Spanish and math. Arts integration is what we've been focused on in our arts ed work at IAC for nearly a decade now. With the PACE program, some of you will remember, Partnering Arts Communities in Education, we did the research. We measured when we funded schools to have artists visit. We measured the impact on the students, and it was good results, high impact on the students. So this research shows the impact of arts and integration in a school and in a classroom. And it was all great news. But now we're faced with the question, we know arts integration is good, but how can we get that impact out there? How do we ripple this out beyond the 10 pilot schools that we had for PACE? Here's a illustration of the progression of the arts ed programs at the IAC from 2014 to 2024. So in the middle, we have PACE. That's what we've been working on since 2014. It was a long research project where we went in depth at 10 different schools, and we had our researcher Bob Sable at Purdue University publish a research program, a research report for us. When that wrapped up in 2021, we said, okay, we got to expand this now. We got to get this out. And we started the Arts Integration Learning Labs last summer, if you remember. That brought in another set of schools and educators, so the number of schools and educators that know about arts integration and who are ready to implement it is growing. Here we are in 2023, we're doing this Indiana Educator Fellowship for Creative Teaching. We're expanding from 10 schools, 35 schools, now we're at 55 schools, and this is more of a deep dive year. We're taking these 20 educators and we're putting them through training, and they're going deep into arts integration. And next year, 2024, we're looking for the statewide conference for arts education that Maya mentioned in partnership with the Department of Education. And so we're going to have 400 plus educators as we grow this work outward across the state. We have another flow chart for you because why not? Andre was already on a roll. This illustrates the work here is in two parts, learning and funding. There aren't a lot of teacher prep programs in colleges that teach arts integration as a core part of how to be a teacher, right? So we know from the research here and nationally that this is a great strategy to use. Teachers should be using arts integration, using art skills to teach what they need to engage students, especially those who don't learn in the traditional learning styles. But it's not a key part of a lot of those teacher prep programs. So that is why we focus heavily on learning in this work. I'm taking the educators this year and the cohort through 2 online sessions, and then we're going to meet in person for 2 days in July. And this is all just, again, deep dive on what are the arts, what do they look like, how can you use a piece of what you've learned. You know, you're not just going to pick up the ukulele and start to teach your students ukulele if you're a math teacher. I know that, but you're going to learn from the artist what are some components of music that you can implement, rhythm, and the music artist we're working with this summer is going to translate how musical notes are the same thing as algebraic thinking, where you're using symbols in math, X and Y, to represent numbers. And in music, you use the whole note and single note and half note, and those are symbols that represent numbers, half or one or whatever. So he's translating those math concepts back and forth. And so if the teacher can just get some of those concepts and start doing rhythm and those basic music elements, then the students who are like, I don't want to do math, but they're really into music, they're going to be more into that algebra for that session at least. So that's what I'm talking about with arts integration. This summer, we've got the educator training I'm talking about in the Summer Institute in July. Then they have access to project funding. Each educator, so we started with the 20 educators across the state, are being paired with an arts organization in their area. We saw this in PACE, that it's a very effective model if a teacher has an anchor institution to go to as experts in the arts, and they can rely on them to say, who's an artist who does high school level music? Who's an artist in our community that does this? So we've got an anchor arts institution in the community, we've got the educator, and then the arts organization will find an artist to implement programming in the school. So it's I kind of think of it as a triangle: the artist, the arts organization, and the educator, and they all work together to implement programming for the students during the school day. So that project funding, which is going to be $7,250, will go to the arts organization to supply activities to that teacher's classroom. That's artist fees, supplies, all of those things are in the guidelines for this program, which you're going to approve in a moment. I mentioned the guidelines because that is related to this $7,250 in project funding for each arts organization. They're going to do substantial collaboration together, the arts organization, the educators, so they can plan and bring both the arts and the curriculum together. This is a very clear and intentional moment, the collaboration in the flow chart for a reason. We really want to emphasize that they need to work together to make a really strong arts organization. The educators all get their choice of arts organization. They're recommending to me who they want to partner on based on who's in their community and what kind of art form they think their students will respond to. Some of the conversations I'm having with the educators are your students really chatty? Do they love to talk to each other? Do they love to like be in group projects? I think theater would be a great fit for them. That's all about communication and teamwork. Are they not chatty? Do they kind of want to be independent and do their own work? Maybe we think about visual arts where they work on their thing and then they can come together at the end and talk about it. So those are the things we talk about so that the educator can make an informed decision and select an arts organization that will fit for their students. In the end, we'll have 20 co-created arts integration residencies that will happen this fall semester. And, 100 sessions or more across the state, over 500 students impacted is our estimate. And at the end, we'll have project reports and videos to share out on the impact of this program doing. If you remember, when I said at the beginning, we have 10 schools, we have 10 case studies. Now we're at 20 plus last year's 25. We're at almost 50 schools that have done this work, these arts integration residencies, and we're growing the understanding of arts integration. And hopefully these educators who we're deep diving with will become ambassadors for the work. It's really what I'm hoping for. We do have an action for this, and it's a two-part action. One is to approve the guidelines for that arts partner project funding that I talked about in your materials. The second part of the action is to cede authority to the IAC staff, myself and Katie, for selection of all FCT arts partners. The accompanying grant that I talked about, the $7,250, we're just going to allocate that amount to all 20 of the arts partners. Not going to be more than 20. So that's the max, and that's the max amount. Any questions?
Great work, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Absolutely great work. Can we get a motion?
So moved.
Second. Some of you should be enjoying it so much, yeah.
I'm taking in the moment.
That's what we want. Okay, Stephanie.
Easy.
Aye.
Alberta,
Aye.
Chad,
Aye.
Rena,
Aye.
Ruth Ann,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Ray.
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
Renee,
Aye.
Kelsey,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Dusty.
Aye.
Ian,
Aye.
motion carries, thank you.
And I would be remiss if I, number one, thank Kelsey for her work and helping us select the cohort, but Ruth Ann for her stalwart support through PACE. And sort of ongoing work in arts education. We have had Ruth Ann Cullen, she's been fantastic advocate and support and idea generator as we move through the arts education work. So thanks to Commissioner. Thank you. Okay, we have the approval of fellowship for creative teaching. We did that. That's what we did. Yeah, okay. So that was included in both. Yes, yeah, okay,
Okay.
thank you. Okay, yeah, that's all good. Okay, regional arts partnership, Kayla.
Yeah, so, Regional Arts Partners, we met here yesterday, from 12 to 3. We had a really engaging, robust discussion. I think we only maybe braked for 5 minutes because that's so into it. One neat thing was the, comms team asked for feedback on, the best way for partners to distribute information in addition to what they're already providing. It was a really helpful discussion with some great suggestions, for social media sharing, through a private Facebook group perhaps, and adding a ready email and media kit that they already provide. The comms team is also doing a great job preparing us to be fully equipped with documentation, and talking points for the unfunded AOS group. And then Maya graciously offered to have the one-on-one conversations that we talked about earlier. We also discussed other potential opportunities for the unfunded group that you heard about earlier, with capacity building, and what that might look like, such as mentorship, perhaps with smaller organizations being mentored by larger organizations, maybe consulting or a training series on identified topics, such as community engagement or grant writing. We also had a lot of discussion and Q&A around the AOS presentation. Partners noted throughout the state, it's so great to see the impact of all of the changes, pay off with funding outcomes as a result of the equity changes and process team that the IAC has worked so hard on alongside the partners. And really sincere appreciation for our voices being heard throughout that process. And we're really looking forward to the APS redevelopment. As we reviewed AOS and APS this year, AOS, it was so great to see those changes take place. But with APS, we can see a little bit of room for improvement. And then when I just asked the partners about what they wanted me to share, I just commented on the phenomenal team that the IAC has put together, and that we love working on. So thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. John Kay is not with us today. So we will not be doing the presentation. So and there are no consent agenda items that are moved. So next on the agenda is the officer elections. And I am pleased to present the slate for Ann Valentine as chairperson, Dave Heist as vice chair, and Rena Bradley as secretary. So if I could, I would, well, I guess I should ask, are there any motions from the floor before we go forward? Hearing none, take a motion to approve the slate as stated.
Motion to approve the new slate of officers.
Second.
Thank you. Stephanie?
Azizi,
Aye.
Alberta,
Aye.
Chad,
Aye.
Rena. Aye. Ruth Ann,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Ray,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
Renee,
Aye.
Kelsey,
Aye.
Jake,
Aye.
Dusty,
Aye.
Ian.
Aye.
Motion carries.
The moment that we pass the symbolic gavel from Alberta to Anne. So Anne, we're handing you the virtual and symbolic gavel as the incoming chair.
Thank you. I think what I'd like to do now is just thank Alberta for her leadership. I know that she is entering a time of life transition, but she has guided us through some really big transitions for the Arts Commission. And she has done it with thoughtful, kind, strong, and quiet leadership. She's not a showy kind of leader, and I've really admired and appreciated that. But we've been through quite a bit in the Arts Commission under her leadership, and really just such a sincere thank you, Alberta. I'm sorry that I couldn't be there in person for this, but I think I'm going to turn it back to Maya because I think we have some additional appreciation to offer.
We do. Alberta, do you want to say? All right, we'll do that.
Got a card from the commissioners.
We didn't bring tissues. We knew this was coming. We didn't bring tissues. Also a card from the staff and a small token from the commissioners as well as this. Thank you very much. Sorry, it was a bittersweet moment. Yeah, we met.
I just want to say thank you to all of you. It has been a blessing and an honor to be a part of this commission. I would continue to be amazed every single meeting at the wonderful work of the staff and how much the state has progressed. Thank you, Maya. My gosh, your leadership. Ruth Ann and I were talking last night, and we think that under your leadership, the commission has reached a new level.
You have done it.
Here, here.
We just- And the wonderful work of Paige, Andre,
Yeah.
all of you, every single, we cannot imagine the commission without you. It would not be the same. And thanks to all of you. You're in wonderful hands with Anne. She is brilliant and amazing. So I thank you for that. And Dusty, I believe that this is your.
Actually, it's not. Yeah, September is Dusty's last meeting. So you get to keep Dusty a little bit longer. Not how much I know she announced it, but yeah, we're keeping her, we're hanging on to her for at least one more meeting. So
Anyway, thank you. I really appreciate everyone.
Thank you so much, Alberta. And I think you've paired me with perhaps the best balance in Dave. So we appreciate that. Is there any other business to come before the commission? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
We are adjourned. Do we do a roll call?
We don't need to. Yep. All right.
So we're done? We're adjourned?
Yes. Adjourned. Go back to the beach, Anne.